What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Head Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here, and coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett, all three coordinators, and cornerback Pat Surtain as they all spoke to the media today. Plus, I'll have the latest injury report, and Ravens editorial director Ryan Mink joins us to get his thoughts on this matchup from the Ravens' perspective. All that and more coming up. This week on Broncos Now, we are giving away a $100 gift card to the Denver Broncos team store. So make sure to enter for a chance to win at denverbroncos.com/podcast/Broncos Now. The team had another day of practice here at the UC Head Training Center as they continue to prepare for their road trip this weekend to Baltimore. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett spoke today on what it's been like trying to simulate Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson at practice this week.
You can't simulate Lamar. I mean, he's a rare talent. And, I mean, we put some guys out there, and they try their hardest, and it looks good at times and not as good at other times. But we try to give the best look we possibly can. And
defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero and cornerback Pat Surtain both spoke on Lamar Jackson's talent and what makes him so unique.
He's just, I don't know if there's ever been a player like this. There's going to be the Mike Vick comparisons and things like that. But, first of all, he's big, he's strong, he's hard to tackle, and he's probably the fastest guy on the field. So, and then obviously he can throw the ball too. So there's a lot of factors there, and he's a special player.
The challenge is that he's a very versatile quarterback. He brings a lot to the offense with his running ability and his passing ability. So he's a major threat, and he just creates explosive plays using his feet or his arms. So it's going to be a challenge.
Looking at Denver's defense, Coach Evero went on to discuss the problems that Carolina posed this past weekend and how he hopes to see his unit improve, specifically the pass rush this Sunday.
I think there were some things we could have done better schematically. I think we just got to play blocks better. That's part of it as well. And so, we just weren't good enough. I don't think there's any surprises in terms of what they did. We just got to be a little bit better all around. We got to pick up the pressure. I think, first of all, we got to get more opportunities. I think, if you don't get those third and longs or those second and longs, so we got to do a better job on early downs. I think that'll help it and give us those opportunities. And then, we got to be more creative, and we got to win one-on-ones.
Pat Surtain also spoke on his past two performances and how important it is to stay confident at the cornerback position.
You always got to keep your confidence no matter what the situation is. That's the biggest thing at our position. It's one of the toughest positions to play in football. So you always got to have that chip on your shoulder, that one-play mentality. So, you just got to focus on the next play and, just correct some things here on out and, just focus on this week coming up. So.
We saw running back Latavius Murray rush for 92 yards this past Sunday in Carolina, and his longest run of the day, a 52-yarder, and by far the Broncos' longest run of the season. Offensive coordinator Justin Outen talked about the run game today and how he hopes to see them build upon that performance.
Yeah, last week I challenged him because our top run was 17 yards, 3 times in a row. Couldn't get over 17. So I gave him a plus 18 challenge last week, so 2 weeks ago. They didn't get it. So last week, they got it. And when they hit the 52, that sideline was jacked. And the coaches were jacked. Like, they were committed to getting that done. And I might have promised them something. They don't know what it is, but they're going to get it hopefully tomorrow. But there's a lot to say about that. Establishing the run game is something that we talked about when this whole coaching staff got here. And we haven't been able to get those marks, those explosive plays. You've been chipping away. You were getting happy if you're getting 5-6 yards. I think they're really dedicating themselves and their craft, all 11 guys, not just the O-line, but I'm talking about the receivers, the quarterback getting us in the right play, but everyone being on the same page and really taking pride in the run game.
Coach Outen also spoke on facing a tough Ravens defense this weekend, specifically inside linebacker Roquan Smith, and the challenge that he'll present.
He's a special player and, in my opinion, one of the best backers in the league. And you can see that he fit in very nicely and very smoothly. He's a guy that he's all over the place on the video. He's strong, he's athletic, he's smart, physical. So he's a guy that fits their system extremely well, and just – looking at their defense as a whole, from the first level to the third level, they're really talented, and you can tell that they're able to get in and out of pressures because they're so used to playing in that defense, and they can make their own calls. So that's the advantage that they have in those situations. Sometimes they guess wrong, though, and you can see that on the video. So we're going to try to, as much as we can, limit the penetration up front, but also account for those linebackers, that second level that can fly around.
And last but not least, special teams coordinator Dwayne Stukes spoke on the Ravens special teams unit, it being one of the best in the league.
We know that they are one of the top units, and that's what we strive to be. That's the standard that we're trying to establish around here, but it takes time. We have a lot of young guys in the building. We have a lot of guys that have been in and out of the lineup. We know the challenge as far as getting to that place. We're not there yet, but they are one of the top units, and you can see that on film, 100%.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at the injury report. The only changes from yesterday's report are cornerback K'Wan Williams and defensive end Draymond Jones were limited today, and safety Kareem Jackson was a full participant. Coach Hackett also gave an update on KJ Hamler and said he had a setback. They're still evaluating everything with him and that his care is the number one priority. And I had a chance to catch up with Baltimore Ravens editorial director Ryan Mink and get his thoughts on this matchup from the Ravens perspective. Take a listen. Ryan, appreciate you joining me on the show today.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
Yeah, how are things going over there in Baltimore?
Good. Yeah, been a good season so far. Coming off a tough loss, but Ravens have a favorable schedule down the stretch and hope to make a playoff run.
You mentioned that tough loss in Jacksonville this past Sunday. What's kind of been the mood or really the mindset in the locker room this week?
Yeah, not a whole lot different. I think it obviously stung on the flight back and whatnot, but this team I think still has a lot of confidence in who they have. It was another kind of late defensive meltdown for this defense, which we've seen too much around here this season. That's been kind of the Ravens' Achilles heel, but the defense is strong, and I think they're moving on.
Well, I know Lamar Jackson, he was limited at practice on Wednesday with that quad injury. What's kind of the latest on him and his status?
Yeah, well, we haven't had practice yet today, so I'm not sure, but I don't expect that it's going to be a big thing. Just kind of, he's had some bumps and bruises. He had a hip last week. The week before that, he had an illness, and I expect that it's not something that's going to hold him out of action.
Well, I know the Ravens, they've blown fourth quarter leads in all 4 of their losses this season.
Right.
What's kind of the coaching staff saying about that this week, and how do they really hope to correct that kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think part of it this past week was they kind of just tipped their cap to Trevor Lawrence. He played out of his mind. I mean, he just had his best game as a pro. And, of course, you also make some corrections and whatnot, but the defense felt like it got a little bit lackadaisical. They felt like they're beyond some of those fourth quarter issues. And, there's no way they're going to march down the field on us here and score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion to win, and then just he makes some incredible throws. And you're like, wow, that just happened. Right. And so I think it's more than anything, it's just kind of it was a wake up call. I think it's a mentality kind of thing more than like there was a scheme problem or something like that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I know the Ravens, they've also struggled, inside the red zone this season, and it'll be another tough challenge for them this Sunday, trying to correct that going up against, the number 1 red zone defense here in Denver. So how are you hoping Lamar Jackson and company really look to fix that this weekend?
Yeah. I mean, I think running the ball in the red zone would certainly help. The Ravens have Gus Edwards. He's going to be back for his second straight game and probably even a little bit stronger than he was in his first. If you can run the ball down there, that really opens things up a lot. But, they've looked at everything. The red zone has been a real bugaboo for this offense. And I think schematically they're going to have some different wrinkles, and it's a definite focus this week. And like you said, the Broncos are a really good red zone defense, and the Ravens know, hey, in these games that we're supposed to win, on paper at least, like you can't let teams hang around, especially teams with Russell Wilson and as much talent as the Broncos have. Those teams hang close. Russell Wilson can beat you down the stretch and in the second half for sure. So, they know that they need to capitalize early in games and kind of build leads on people.
Looking at the Ravens defense, I know the run defense, they held the Jaguars to only 38 rushing yards last week. As this Denver offense tries to continue to try and build their running game or get that running game going. How do you want to see the Ravens defense really build off that performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't think the run defense is going to change. It's been pretty dominant, and the players in there, are just very reliable guys. I don't think that anything's going to change there. We know Latavius Murray well. He was with
Yeah.
us last year. So I expect that the Ravens are probably going to do a pretty good job against the Broncos run game. And the question is then, you know, can Russell escape the pressure? Can the Ravens dial up pressure if they get him into third and long situations and whatnot? Trevor Lawrence stood in there and made some big time throws in those situations. So if the Ravens pass rush, which has been pretty good this year, can tee off a little bit, it's going to be a tough sled for the Broncos.
Yeah, you mentioned that pass rush. I know they sacked Trevor Lawrence 4 times on Sunday. They've been really dominant the past couple of weeks, like you mentioned. Who does Russell Wilson and company really need to be on the lookout for this weekend in that regard?
I mean, there's not one person, Patrick Queen has gotten a lot of sacks, even Roquan Smith is kind of getting in on the action now. Tyus Bowser's back. He's getting a lot of sacks, and Justin Houston is 10th in the league with 9 sacks this year. So it's not really that the Ravens have one edge rusher that you're like, like a TJ Watt or a Bosa or whatever that you say, oh my gosh, have to watch that guy. But it's Mike McDonald's done a good job of kind of mixing and matching and cornerback blitzes and safety blitzes and all that stuff. So there's not really one guy.
Well, Ryan, looking at this game as a whole, who do you think is really the mashup to watch this weekend?
I think it's on the perimeter. I think that the Broncos, obviously, they have Cortland Sutton out there, who's a big time player. Marlon Humphrey's kind of a little bit banged up, was not in practice due to an ankle injury yesterday. So if the Ravens are shorthanded at corner, Broncos still have some good wide receivers. We'll see if Jerry Jeudy plays.
Right.
We'll see about Hamler. If those guys are out there and Russ starts to cook, and the Ravens are shorthanded at corner, then you can be in a dangerous position. So I look at whoever's out there, if it's Marlon or whatnot, versus Cortland Sutton.
Last one here for you, Ryan. Who's one guy you really, really want to see step up for the Ravens this weekend?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
No, you're good.
Woo!
It's cold season.
Yes. I'd have to say probably, I think they need to protect Lamar a little better.
Okay.
Morgan Moses at right tackle, I think, will be a big one. Because the Broncos have some pass rushers, so, making sure they keep Lamar upright will be big.
Yep. Well, I won't keep you talking any longer, Ryan. So
Thank you.
appreciate your insight on the team and appreciate your time today.
Of course, thank you.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. And don't forget to enter for a chance to win a $100 gift card to the Denver Broncos team store. You can find the form on denverbroncos.com/podcast/Broncos Now. Well, I hope to see you all right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for another episode and a game preview. I'll see you all then.